of Vermont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the only independent in the Congress, what I want to do is take a few minutes to discuss some of the major issues facing this country, issues which often don't get the time and exposure that I think that they need. And the very first issue that I would like to touch upon deals with how the American people get the information that they need in order to formulate intelligent decisions in our democracy. I am increasingly concerned about the rapid concentration of ownership within the media in America today. It should be a real concern to all Americans that all of our major television networks are owned by very, very powerful and wealthy corporations who very clearly have a conflict of interest in terms of what they present on the air. Rupert Murdoch, a multi-billionaire right-wing individual, owns the Fox television network. ABC has recently been purchased by Walt Disney, whose chief executive officer earns several $100 million a year and is one of the wealthier people in America. CBS will now be owned by the Westinghouse Corporation. NBC is owned by General Electric. And I think what we have got to ask ourselves, are corporations like these going to provide objective information to the American people? I think the answer is very clearly no. And I think the situation in terms of corporate ownership of the media is going from bad to worse. Fewer and fewer large corporations are controlling not only the television, controlling the radio industry, book publishing, newspapers, etc. Mr. Speaker, I would raise a particular concern that recently, just in the last week or so, we learned that the Jim Hightower radio show has been taken off of the air by ABC. To my mind, the Hightower show was one of the more provocative and interesting radio talk shows in America. It was a progressive show. I think it was a very good antidote to the Rush Limbaugh and the G. Gordon Liddy types, and I am concerned about its disappearance from the air. Mr. Speaker, the second issue that I want to talk about, which also does not get a whole lot of discussion, is the reality that is facing middle-class America and the working people of this country. To my mind, the most important economic issue facing this country is that the standard of living of the vast majority of our people has declined since 1973. I get very tired of reading newspapers that tell us about how good the economy is, how the economy is booming, how we're creating new jobs, how the gross national product is going up. All of those figures are fine, but they are irrelevant in terms of what is happening to the average American worker. The fact of the matter is that since 1973, 80%, repeat, 80% of American working people have seen either a decline in their real inflation accounted for wages or at best economic stagnation. The middle class is shrinking. Poverty has increased significantly over the last 15 years. On the other hand, what has happened is the very wealthiest people in this country have seen a tremendous increase in their incomes. I wonder how many Americans know that right now, today, the United States of America has by far, the most unequal distribution of wealth in the industrialized world. No, it is not Great Britain with their queens and their dukes and their barons and their strong class-based society which has the most unequal distribution of wealth. It is the United States of America. With the rich growing richer, the middle class shrinking, and the poverty increasing, we now have a situation where the richest 1% own more wealth than the bottom 90%. Richest 1% own more wealth than the bottom 90%. And no matter how you slice it, that ain't fair. It's not what America is supposed to be. And very clearly, Newt Gingrich's contract with America, which will give huge tax breaks to the richest people in this country, which will in effect do away with taxes for the largest corporations while cutting back on all the needs of working people, low-income people, and the middle class, will only make that situation even worse. Let me very briefly, Mr. Speaker, touch upon some of the areas that I think we've got to move in if we're going to revitalize American democracy, if we're going to increase voter turnout, if we're going to make the American people feel, well, Mr. Speaker, it looks like I'm not going to get to those issues. We'll try again next time. Thank you very much.